Yeah.
Well, look, I won't take too much of your time. I definitely appreciate this. So, like, what this piece is going to be, it's going to be a written piece. Like, I'm not using this video. I need the audio, but it's going to be a written piece. So your audio or video won't be in it. It's just the information you give me, and it's going to be yourself, Red Alert, Chuck Chill Out, the Awesome Two from WHBI, who they were a lot less popular than you guys. I'm just trying to do a piece on hip hop radio in general. Then the guy from K Day over in Cali. You know, I've talked to all you guys recently. So I just want to put together I guess like an oral history of just, rap radio. So
Right.
so yeah. So before I put anything out, I'll send it to you to make sure that I represented everything you said, in the way that you wanted to say. Sometimes, you can talk to a person and once you type it up and they see it, they're like, I didn't mean it that way. So just so everything's clear, on what you wanted to communicate.
Okay. All
Yep.
right.
So yeah, so the first question is so what were you doing were you doing before you got into radio, and how did you actually get into radio?
Okay. Well, basically, what I was doing before getting into radio, okay, I graduated from high school, then I went to college. And then while I was in college, it was like, Jay, the very first week that I was in college, I became the program director of the college station.
Oh wow.
Okay. It was that quick. I walked in that radio station and said, I don't know what format this is, but I'm going to do it, And I got the job to be the program director.
And you
Well,
had no prior radio experience?
none, except I built my own recording studio at my dad's house. You want to know how I got into radio? What made me go for radio?
Certainly.
Okay. When I was 14 years old, I was a newspaper boy, a newspaper carrier. Okay. And it turned out that on Saturday nights, we would actually get the comic sections,
Mm.
you know, for the Sunday New York Daily News. Okay. And being 14 years old, being conscientious, I was short 4 comic sections. So
Okay.
I called the district office and told them, tomorrow, can you have the carrier bring me 4 extra comics? Because if you don't deliver the comic section on Sunday morning, they don't pay for it. The customer will not pay for it. So I ended up, he said to me, why don't you just come down to the office and pick up the comics yourself? So I got on my bicycle and I went down. It was about maybe a 10-mile ride in my bike. And when I arrived in the office, the district manager said, "Hey, Tony, take a ride with Lewis. He has to go to the west side and pick up other carriers' money." So I said, "Okay." So I did it. He showed me $5, and I went into it. So on the way back, all right, there's like a torrential rainstorm. It
Okay.
happened September 24th. I'll never forget it.
Wow.
We're passing this ball field and it's a torrential rainstorm. Okay. He looks over and says, I wonder if I should play football today. And I look and I went, it's a torrential rainstorm, man. You're going to be in mud. And
Right.
this was a curvy highway, a curvy parkway. And I said, if we're both looking over there, who's driving this car?
Right, right.
And when I looked forward, we were going straight into a New York City bus.
Ooh.
And all of a sudden, we hit the bus head on. The car went up in the air. It went sideways. I could still remember the scraping, you know, and we went through a stone bridge wall and down the car went. So basically, my head was split open. There was a tree branch in my heart. All right. Um, this part of me was over here.
Wow.
Um, I was dead on arrival. Okay. So I was in a 6-month coma. And But the last several months of that coma, my dad came into the hospital room because I started to hear people, but I couldn't open my eyes. I couldn't move. It's called
Paralysis.
sleep paralysis. So I was trying to like do things, but I couldn't, you know. So he whispered in my ear and he said, "Time heals all wounds." And he turned on a radio station. He says, "Listen to the music and try, you know." So he did. He turned on the radio station. And at that time, that station was WOR FM. It was WOR FM 98.7, WOR FM. So being in this coma, I started watching radio and imagining what was going on behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Like I noticed that certain records will repeat more than others.
Right.
Like the disc jockeys would actually be saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, those are called liners.
Sure. Keep going. Keep going.
Okay. And I just started to really, really get into it. And I went, wow, how can they start a record on the dime? When I put a needle on a record, it takes a minute for it to start playing. You know what I mean?
Exactly. Right.
And how are they able to talk and we can't hear them? You
Yeah.
disappeared, by the way.
Yeah. I got my camera off, but I can still hear you. Yeah.
I want to see you.
Oh, I'm coming back. I'm trying to do something on my computer. Yeah, just give me a
Oh,
couple of
okay.
minutes. Yeah,
So
I'm
I'll
coming
try
right
to
back.
make,
Yeah.
I tend to make a long story longer, but
No, you good. You good. If I need to cut you for length, I'll let you know. You're fine so far.
okay. So what happened was, like I said, I started watching radio,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what got me interested. So
Okay.
when I woke up, my mouth was wide shut. I couldn't really talk, so I hand wrote, and I just wrote out radio.
Oh wow.
And anyway, several years later, I ended up building my own recording studio, and I started practicing being on the radio. Playing music, liners, the whole 9 yards.
Uh-huh.
And then let's see. Um, then when I entered college, I started to send air checks out to that same station.
Uh-huh.
All right. And every day I would go to the FedEx office. And back then, you didn't need their account number. You would
Oh.
just check bill recipient. And they used to have like a little book, and they would actually look up the account and fill it out.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Jay, I did that every day for a year.
Okay.
I would send them an air check every single year. I mean, every single day on my way to school.
Uh-huh.
Then one day, the program director at the station at the time, his name was Don Kelly, he actually came up to my college and he looked at me and he said, "Listen, uh, I need to see you in my office tomorrow at 9 a.m. sharp."
Mm.
And I went, okay. So I went down there. He had me waiting till like 3 o'clock that afternoon. And I'm
Uh-huh.
sitting in the waiting room of what was then 99X.
Okay.
Okay. So he finally brought me back to his office, and you could see every FedEx envelope lined up in his office, me forever. And he
Uh-huh.
hands me a bill. It was like over $5,500. And he
Wow.
said, "You got two choices. Either you work it off, or we call the police and have you arrested."
Right. Wow.
So I looked at him. I said, "I'll work it off."
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I got my foot in the door.
That's crazy.
Okay. But it was a good thing because I was able to get internship credits by
Mhm.
being there.
Right.
So at the same time, it worked out, but I was the very first intern which was then RKO Radio.
Ah,
Okay.
okay.
So I was the very first intern there.
Hmm.
So what happened was, after I graduated college, they offered me the research director job
Okay.
to do music research, where I would call up, record companies and all that. So
Hmm.
what I ended up doing was making myself too valuable to let go.
Ah,
So
okay.
I basically made my own role.
Hmm.
Okay. So one day I end up getting a phone call from a woman.
Hmm.
Now, the station already switched to FM 99 to a kind of an urban contemporary station at the time,
Okay.
but it wasn't taking off. It wasn't working. It was called FM 99 WXLO from the streets.
Okay.
It wasn't working, and so anyway, I get this phone call from this listener, and she was complaining at the way we were using the word hot on the air. Like we were saying hot music and all
Right.
that stuff. And she thought it was too sexually explicit back then.
Wow.
And she went on and said, I loved 99X. I love the rock records you play, but I don't like you using the word hot.
Mm.
So I said, ma'am, we haven't been 99X in over a year. So I don't think you got the right station. Um, so, I hung up the phone. Excuse me. I hung up the phone. Then I sat back in my chair and I says, we have a perception issue. Because 99X was a big top 40 station back in the 70s.
Right.
Okay. And for them to switch to what they called back then some kind of urban contemporary station, but they had another name for it.
Okay.
But because they kept the 99 image in there, people still thought it was 99X.
Ah, okay.
Okay. So there was a perception problem based on that one phone call.
Mm.
So the program director was that same man that came to my college. I walked into his office and I said, you know what, Don? I think we have a perception problem.
Mm.
People think we're 99X still and that
Right.
we're playing rock music.
Wow.
This is no rock station,
Mhm.
So I said, I think we have a perception problem. And then the next morning, I come into the station. And by the way, my first job there, I only made $10,500 a year. Okay. All right. So I come into the station. I made more pumping gas than I did that job.
Right.
Okay. But I was in the radio station. That's all I cared about,
That's it.
So I come in and I see the engineers building this massive equipment.
Mm.
And I walked in, I said, what's this? He goes, oh, didn't you hear? We're flipping the format to beautiful music. And this is going to be the automation system. I
Mm.
said, what? I just started here. I said, there's no way that this
Right.
station's going to go away,
Right. Right. Right.
So I went into Don Kelly's office. Now, keep in mind, this is way before Barry Mayo ever got there.
Okay.
Way before he even got there. So I went into Don Kelly's office. I said, seriously, Don? They're going to make this thing beautiful music? I said, let me have this station for a month. And if I don't build these ratings up, then fire me. Go ahead and fire me. So he looked at me, he goes, you got it. So I got rid of the FM 99 slogan, brought it back to its what the actual frequency was, which was 98.7. And on August 1st at 3 p.m., 1981, Kiss FM was born at 3 p.m. in the afternoon. And in 1 month, just 1 month, the station went from a 1.1 to a 3.3 in our very first rating book. The automation system got torn down. And then I was the one actually running the radio station.
And what was the format? Like,
I made it
once you took it
urban.
over?
Yeah, RKO General back then wouldn't allow me to call it a black station.
Right.
Okay. So I came up with the word urban contemporary. Urban meaning the city, contemporary of the music of today.
Right.
So that's how I came up with the name Urban Contemporary. All right. So now everything's running great. The station went from a 3.3 up to a 4.5. So the station kept on building. But then they brought Barry Mayo in. And Barry Mayo came in from GCI in Chicago, a radio station out there. And when he came in, he totally wanted to revamp the whole thing that I started. All right. It's actually in the book, The Hip Hop, The Big Payback, the whole thing. So he comes in and he says, well, I want to start playing some jazz on the radio station. So he ended up playing like artists like Al Jarreau, Roy Ayers,
Grover Washington Jr.
Love,
type stuff.
Love Unlimited Orchestra.
Yeah.
And I looked at it. I said, now he was hired as the assistant PD at the time. Okay. And I went to Don Kelly, who was still the PD, the guy that hired me. And I went to him, I said, this guy is screwing with the fucking radio station. And he goes, Tony, it's out of my hands.
And what was your position? What was your job title at that time?
Music and research director.
Right.
Okay, music and research director. And I said, he's destroying everything I built. So then one day, Barry and I used to do music meetings. We would like listen, because every Wednesday we would meet with the record industry. And then on that Monday, we would review all the records that were presented to us from the record industry.
Right.
And then we would pick out songs that we would want to play. So there was one particular record that I wanted to play, and it was called Dynasty, Here I Am. Before him, I didn't have to go through anybody.
Right.
Okay. But when he got there, I had to go through him now. Now, keep in mind, I'm still the music and research director. All right. And still getting paid $10,500. All right. So I present him a record, Dynasty, Here I Am. And he says to me, that's a piece of crap. And I looked at him. I said, Barry, there's been something I've been holding on my chest since you got here. I said, you're destroying what I built. I said, the station went from a 4.5 since you got here back down to a 2.2 with your jazz shit. And what he did was he left my office, went into his office, and came out with a bat. And he went after me with a baseball bat around the radio station. And I ended up leaving the building, hitting Broadway and saying, is this what radio is? So basically, Barry and I did not have a great relationship during that time. All right. But he could not fire me, although I think he wanted to because I disrespected him. But what the hell? I was a 19-year-old kid. You know what I mean? I just spoke what was on my mind. I didn't deal with the business politics.
Right.
I just did it,
Right.
So after that, things were kind of not right between us. But again, he couldn't fire me. So, we continued, and he finally came into my office and said, all right, I give up. Let's do it back your way. So it went back to my way. And I said to him, I said, okay, if Don Kelly remains as the program director and you're the assistant PD, then I'm not going to keep doing it my way for $10,500 a year.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
because if the rating goes up, you guys get the credit. And what do I get? Nothing. So I said, you need to adjust my salary, and they did. They brought me from 10,500 to 45,000.
So big
So,
adjustment.
I'm 21 now, so I'm okay. You know what I mean? So at that point forward, he let me do all the music. All right. I did everything. And all he did was just supervise everything. So
let me
that's
let me back up a little bit, because it's interesting that you took it from the rock music that it was, and then you brought in urban contemporary music and brought the numbers up. What was your musical background growing up? What kind of music played in your household? What did you grow up to? What kind of music? And what music did you appreciate before becoming on the radio, a radio employee?
well, before the car accident, I took radio for granted.
Okay.
But what my dad turned me on to was WBLS. He was into more of the audio sound of BLS. Um, he liked the warmthness of BLS back then, the ambiance of the station. Like I remember being in the car with him when I was a kid, saying, "Listen to that stereo effect." You
Mm.
know, I, on the other hand, was into 99X because I was into the dance scene. I liked the disco era. Okay. And that 99X was playing more dance disco, that's what it was. But
Hmm.
really, disco is nothing more than R&B dance music. Okay. And it still has a meaning for today. But I was listening more to 99X because of the dance stuff. Um, but he was the one that turned me on to WBLS.
And what kind of music was WBLS playing at that time when he turned you on to it? What?
It was urban,
Urban.
or
Okay.
it was black. It
It was
was
so
black.
you grew.
Black.
So what I'm getting at, you grew up hearing black music in your household, whether you liked it, whether you accepted it immediately or not. You heard black music regularly in your household.
Oh, I heard, yeah. But in my room, 99X was on.
Sure, got you.
And in the house and in his car, BLS was on.
Yeah, okay.
So I was exposed to it.
So yeah, so that's what I was trying to figure out. I mean, I figured that was the case, but so by the time you got to Kiss, you knew how to program because that music was already, a part of the dance part of it and the urban, soul part of it. You already had grown up on it anyway.
Yes, but the difference between KISS and BLS, because when I officially became, God bless you,
Thank you.
when I officially became the program director of that radio station, there were several secrets that I did not implement on KISS. I held them back. But when I became the program director of KISS, that's when I exposed my secrets. And what I did was I made it into a top 40 black station using the same mechanics that 99X had, putting it on a black
A
station.
black station.
Slick it up with jingles, liners, having disc jockeys articulate on the air, not mumbling. BLS presentation was extremely sloppy. You would hear a song playing and the song would end and then boom, right into a commercial. And then you would hear them go back to music and the record would actually wow back in because the disc jockey didn't take the effort to make sure I wouldn't wow in. So
Right.
I made it into a top 40 black station.
Mm-hmm.
I slickened it up, and I made sure all the disc jockeys would articulate on the radio, and that, stereotype the audience. Just talk English, be bright, be excited. And every record that was played on that station was handwritten by me, because they couldn't pick anything they wanted. This is before computers. So I would actually pre-write in order what songs they had to play. They couldn't just randomly pick anything they wanted. Because like I told them, I said, listen, if you want to stay here, just follow what I'm implementing and you'll always have a job here. But if you don't follow what I'm implementing, then you won't. Because ultimately, if the ratings go down, I'm out. And I don't want to be out.
Right.
So just follow the format, it will be cool. Okay. And that's what I did. I created a top 40 black station. Well, the station at that time before it went from a 4.5 to a 6.1. We went to number one. That was the first time Kiss was ever number one. The very first time. We went to a 6.1. And BLS went down to a 2.7. I actually have that I could email you. It's also on my resume portfolio. There's a business from Crane's Business where it actually says Kiss rises above the zoo again, meaning Z100. Because everybody had their eyes focused on Z100 at that time.
Yeah.
But out of nowhere, Kiss went from a 4.5 to a 6.1 and bringing BLS down to a 2.7. Wow. And that just completely rocked everything. People didn't expect, nor did Z100 expect that. For Kiss to beat them, it was like Scott Shannon even said it on his last interview when he was on the radio that this urban station came out of nowhere and beat me. So it was amazing.
About what year was that? What year was that?
That was 1983.
83, okay.
1983. And if you want, I'll send you the article.
Yeah. If you could send it to me, I would like to look at it.
Yeah, you'll see. It says Kiss rises above the zoo. Because they weren't paying attention to BLS back then, because the big word was Z100. That was the talk of the town. It was the first top 40 station on FM radio since ABC, in New York. So they weren't paying attention to any of the black stations. They were all rooting for Z100. But I beat them 5 times.
So now what role, if you can remember, what role did rap music play in your program? What percentage, I would say, of your play was rap music during that time when you got to that last rating you just quoted? Was there a lot of rap? Was this 83? By that time, Run DMC is just coming out. Rap is still new commercially. Was rap a big factor yet?
The first rap record I played was Run DMC.
Okay.
And how that came to be was I was in my office and I turned around and there's Russell Simmons standing there. I don't know how he got back there, but he did. And I turned around and there he was standing and he had an acetate with him. He goes, are you, because he stuttered,
He stuttered, yeah.
He says, are you Tony Q? And I went, yeah. He says, I want you to hear this record. And I said, okay, but it's an acetate. Right. And I said, who are you? He said, Russell Simmons. I said, okay, all right, but it's an acetate. I said, if I play this, it's going to ruin it. So I said, this is what I'll do for you. Let's go into the engineering room. Let them record it on a reel-to-reel.
So
So
you
if it
have it,
gets
right?
ruined, at least I'll have it. So the very first one he played for me was Sucker MC. Okay. And I said, it's okay. It's not, it's okay. But do you have anything else? And he played It's Like That.
Hmm.
So it was also an acetate.
Hmm.
So we did the same thing. And we took, when I heard it, I went, now this is a hit. All right. Um, and we carted it up back then. There was no CDs back then and none of that stuff. We carted it up back then, and I went right in the studio and said, "Play this," and that's how Run DMC started. You
So
know,
you were the first in New York to play on the air, pretty much.
yes. And the back of that album, by the way, on the very, their first album, you see in the back my name. Extra special thanks to Tony Q.
Right, right.
Yeah. So that was my very first rap record that I played was
So
Run DMC.
so now, what year did you become program director?
1983.
Oh, that was that
19,
same year. Okay, that same year.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, 1983. So that's when I started playing rap music. Then what I would do a lot, Jay, I would actually go up to Harlem and just walk the streets, and check out what the kids were listening on boom boxes back then.
Small move, yeah.
And the second one I played was Dougie Fresh the Show.
Mm.
I heard this kid blasting the song, and I said, "Who is this?" And he said, "Dougie Fresh." I said, "Do you want to visit a radio station?" You know, I said, "Why don't you come downtown with me? And I'll pay you for your time. Come down." And of course he did.
Right, right.
I took that cassette and I carted it up with the engineer and I played it. The show, Dougie Fresh, was my second hip hop record. Now, in the meantime, Barry Mayo is now the general manager of the radio station. Okay. I'm his program director, and he's starting to hear hip hop rap. They didn't call it hip hop, they called it
Right.
rap.
So, hmm.
He's hearing rap on the radio station, and he's coming into my office and saying, "What is this crap?" I said, "It's called rap." Jay, what I went through to keep rap on that radio station was absolutely insane. I'm going to skip a lot, but it was
Yeah.
insane.
What?
I can't. I'm
What?
sorry.
No, 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 go ahead. No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
I've got so many threats from him, stating that if the ratings should go down, I'm out, that I'm nothing but a punk ass white boy. I went through a lot of hell that people do not know what I went through to keep rap on that radio station, you know. And the thing that he did, he tried to distract me so much, sending me to every focus group meeting across the country to keep me out of the radio station as much as possible. But what I did was I had the engineers set up a call a listen line. So wherever I went, I would dial into the station and make sure they were still following my format, that
Mm.
Barry wasn't going in there and taking all my records off, you
Hmm.
know. Yeah, so for several years it was total craziness at that station. But like I said, when the first book came out and we went to number one, the guy actually hugged me, kissed me, and said, "We did it." And I looked at him, I said, "We did it." I said, "You're right, we did do it." I said, "Now let's go in your office." I said, "Where's my bonus check?" you know? And after that, he never bothered me. Never bothered me, you know.
Okay, so you hired you were responsible for hiring both Red and Chuck Chill Out for the station, right?
And Chef Pettibone, the
And
Latin
Shepherd.
Rascals, and the first one we had was Jazzy Jeff. Jazzy Jeff.
Jazzy J or Jazzy Jeff?
Jazzy J, maybe.
Okay.
He was there for a very short time.
Yeah,
He
probably
wasn't
was
there
Jazzy
for
J. Yeah, yeah,
he
probably
wasn't
Jazzy.
there he wasn't there for a long time.
Yeah.
But yeah, the first one that I hired was Red Alert.
So now, what prompted you to do that? Did he have a reputation on the street? What was it that prompted you to hire Red Alert?
The thing is, Jay, here's a new hot station that's on the air. That's number one. These jocks were coming to us. They came to us. You know, it was easy. You know, there would be so many people up qualifying to be a mixer on that station. But every every demo of their show, of their mixing styles that were presented to me, I listened to everyone through and through. And I picked who was the best one to be
Mm,
a mixer on the station.
right.
And Red Alert was the first one. The second one was Chuck Chill Out. Then the third one was Chef Pettibone. The fourth one was Tony Humphreys. The fifth one was the Latin Rascals.
And all of these people submitted demos. They all came to you. You didn't have to pursue them.
Oh, they came. And forget about the air personalities across the country that wanted to shift on that station. They all came. They all applied. They all applied.
Everybody you just named, became like iconic within the music industry. Red Alert had his own recording. Shep Pettibone. I remember there was a Kiss like master mix record. I think it was on Prelude Records. It was like a
Yes.
double album.
Volume 1, Volume 2.
Right. And of course the Latin Rascals, like the best editors out there, they were doing remixes and edits for all of this stuff. So everybody became like their own entity, which was kind of crazy. Did their relationships with record companies and the fact that they were recording artists, was there ever conflict of interest? Did it cause any problems as them being on-air personalities, or everything worked out
Well,
fine?
they weren't on-air personalities. They were mixers.
Okay. So they generally weren't speaking and doing the
They were
weather
not
or any.
speaking. No, they were not speaking. Now, I'm trying to follow your question again.
No, what I'm basically saying, all of them at some point, they became involved in the music industry. All of them.
Yes,
Yeah. Chuck Chill Out had records on different labels. They all had,
right.
recordings. And I was just wondering, was there ever a conflict of interest? Like with BLS, you had Marley Marl was the producer on the record, but he's also a DJ on BLS. So I know that can be a conflict of interest if you're playing your own record, pretty much. So
Yeah.
how did that work with Kiss?
This
Was there
was
ever any problem?
Yeah, this was my opinion because there was no budget for any of the mixers back then. I let them do. They provided all their mixing shows, but we didn't pay them. They
Hmm.
were not paid. Barry would not set up a budget for that, so they weren't paid. So my opinion was, okay, they're doing a service for the station, so let's do a service for them. So if they get an opportunity to gain something for what they're doing for the radio station, let them have it. I didn't stand in their way.
Mm.
They have to eat, right? So let them do what they want to do, you know, and it would be fine with me. If, for instance, if Chuck Gillout was doing a mix show, doing an appearance at the Silver Shadow at a nightclub, I wasn't going to stop him from doing that.
Right.
It's called, a, a working relationship, you
Sure.
know.
Sure.
But the only thing is, they could not they had to provide me a list of their records that they were going to play
Mm,
and their mix shows,
mm.
because I wanted to know what was going to be on the show.
Sure.
But I would listen to the show before it aired to make sure they didn't slip anything in there, if you know what I
Sure.
mean.
Yeah.
You know, because the record companies would do anything to get their music exposed. You know, I noticed one of the questions is payola,
Hmm.
which is something, yes. So I wanted to make sure that wasn't being taken care. That wasn't the case with my jocks. You know, so everything had to be approved by me.
Hmm.
Not that I was trying to be Hitler or anything.
Hmm.
Again, you know, being in New York radio and being at number one, you kind of walk on thin ice sometimes. You know, I mean, yeah, you got to look behind your back every once in a while, because the second that station would have gone down in the ratings, I'd be out.
Right.
Because again, Barry did not like the format. You know, he didn't like the format. He couldn't deal hearing like Wham, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, into a Shannon record, let the music play, you know, from that into Houdini, you know, 5 minutes of funk. He couldn't relate to that because he wanted Roy Ayers on the air.
Right.
So he couldn't relate to that.
Which is I love jazz, but like that was my parents' music, So if he had kept going that way, like, you had your finger more on the pulse of what young people wanted. Young people didn't want Roy Ayers, Donald Byrd, and Grover Washington Jr. So that would have been a tragic mistake to go to Roy Ayers route.
Now, when I left Kiss, because he didn't like the format, he ended up flipping it back to where it was when he first started there. He brought it back to adult AC, adult
Mhm.
black, adult contemporary music.
Mhm.
And that's when the station started to collapse, because you can't have two adult black AC stations in that market. All right. So both BLS went down to the mid threes, Kiss went down both into the mid threes, and nobody was winning because he took away what Kiss stood for.
Mhm.
It was 30% of the audience was black, 30% of the audience was white, and 30% of the audience was Latino. It was a mass appeal radio station.
Mhm.
But our target audience, yes, was black. But I did play a variety of music.
Sure. Sure.
Okay. And that's how I was able to get the Latinos and the Caucasian people, because it was a variety of music. Because you know what, Jay, listeners don't sit in their cars or wherever they're doing and categorize music. The radio industry does. The listeners do not. All
Right.
they
If it's good, it's good. Right.
all they want to hear are good songs.
Hmm.
All right, that's it. Just good
Right.
songs.
Right. Yeah, I'm just going through the questions here. Yeah. So for instance, like the Master Mix album we talked about, was there any that has like the Kiss logo and everything on it. It's very, Kiss heavy, but it was on Prelude Records. Was there, as far as you can remember, was there any business relationship or things that had to be worked out to put that music out, with the Kiss logo on the record and stuff? Was that
We went into a 50-50 partnership with the owner of Prelude Records.
okay?
So that was our way of getting, our album out in the record shops and so
Mhm.
on. It really didn't do great sales. But now it's a collector's item.
It is, right? Yeah, yeah, it is.
Now it's a collector's item because the station's not there anymore. But yeah, it was an arrangement 50-50 between Stan Hoffman, the owner of Prelude Records, and Kiss FM with me and Barry. So we did that as a partnership deal.
As far as so a lot of people, you know, Chef Pettibone's name now is bigger than it ever was. I remember hearing his name like on a couple of rap records back then. I just remember thinking like that's a funny name. You know, it's an odd name. His first and last name. I didn't know who he was at the time. So because you knew him and we worked directly with him and brought him on, what is that was special about Chef Pettibone? What was it? You know, what defines him? What was it? What did he do?
What was so unique about Shep was his master remixes.
Mhm.
You know, like he would like sometimes some songs would just stay in power rotation for a long, long time. You
Mhm.
know, like for instance, Luther Vandross, Never Too Much.
Right,
Man,
right,
that record would the audience couldn't get enough of that record still. And
right.
like that record would be like in power position for almost 8 months, you
Mhm.
know.
Mhm.
So when I said to him, I said, listen, Chef, is there any way that you could freshen up some of these strong songs that we have? You know, like make them fresh again. And that's how we started doing master remixes is what we call them, master remixes. So what he would do, he would take a hit song and remix it and made it fresh. So and then and that's how the Master Mix album came into play. Because every one of those songs on the Master Mix album was played on Kiss. So it was just a way of my idea of just freshening up some of the songs that we were playing on the radio. But it took off.
Yeah, yeah.
It took off.
Did you have any idea at the time? I mean, you probably couldn't have, but did you have any idea at the time that so many, primarily kids, were taping their, or young people were taping the radio shows and circulating them and trading? I mean, they would, I would have them here in Virginia. Back in the '80s, you know, family or whoever in New York, I would have people, sending tapes down of just a random weekend broadcast. Did you know that these things were becoming like collector's items that were eventually like going overseas? At the time.
Not back then. No, 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 because I didn't think that way.
Right.
I was more of a radio person than, the music. I loved the music. I was raised on the music. I believed in the music. I've only been in black radio my entire career. Um, but was I into all that stuff? Or now? Not really.
Right.
But that's why now that I know when I see stuff posted on YouTube and I see like there's some air checks of mine on YouTube.
Yeah, certainly.
And when I read the comments underneath it, oh, it's like one of a kind station. Too bad it's gone. I wish it would come back. That's why I
Hmm.
want to do this. Because if this comes into a reality, it's going to be not minor, Jay.
Oh no,
It's
no,
going to be
no.
gigantic.
It is. It is. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
it's going to destroy BLS, Hot 97, Power 105, and that wannabe block station.
Yeah.
Um, it's just going to destroy it. And I own the prior usage of Kiss,
Right. Yeah.
so it's going to be the same name.
The same name. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy.
Okay. But anyway,
What role, when I talk to and I'm just about done, I appreciate this. Talking to like a lot of New Yorkers about radio, I hear KTU a lot. Do you remember WKTU?
oh yeah,
What
yeah.
what kind of music, compared to what BLS and Kiss was doing? What was KTU? What was their big thing?
Well, there's two KTUs.
Okay.
There was two of them. The first one debuted in 1979,
Okay.
called Disco 92 WKTU. It was on the 92.3 frequency,
Okay.
and that lasted probably for 5 years or
Okay.
so. And then that went to rock because Kiss, we were kicking their butt because we were also playing dance songs. See, they weren't playing any rap at all.
Right.
Okay, they weren't playing any R&B at all. They were playing pure disco. And that's what screwed them by labeling it Disco 92.
Right.
All right. Because you know what happened with the burning of disco records.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Okay. So that killed them. And then the second KTU, which is now on 103.5, they're not really dance if you listen to them. They're more like they're playing pop music, like Harry Styles. It's like I call it bubblegum radio.
Right.
That's what they're doing. And
Okay.
they too are missing the boat because there's timeless classics like Gloria Gaynor, I Will Survive. You know, they should be playing those kind of songs, but they're
Right.
not.
Right.
You know, I was listening to KTU, the new, 103.5 one, and I said, why are they playing Taylor Swift so much?
Right.
That's what Z100's for.
Yeah.
And I'm saying they could go back to playing dance music again, but they're not. They're more of a pop station than a dance station. Let me tell you something. There's a whole category of records of 12 inches that are not being played anymore, Jay, because the people today that are running these radio stations don't know the music. All right? Like, if I threw out a record to you, Stryker's Body Music, do you know
Prelude
it?
again, right? That's Prelude records, yeah.
Do you know that?
Yeah, of course.
It's not being played.
No.
Okay. Jimmy Ross, First True Love Affair, not being played. Tanner Gardner, Heartbeat, not being played.
Crazy.
And that's what I want to bring back. There's a whole category of music,
and all that Latin freestyle stuff, like No Sarah Summertime, produced by Mantronic, all of that Latin freestyle is just, it
Noel
burst.
Silent Morning.
Yeah.
These are all records that I played on Kiss.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I played on Kiss. Yeah, and Barry Mayo went berserk. But screw it. It went, yeah. And I told Barry, I said, listen, if the ratings goes up, who gets the credit? You do. If the ratings go down, who gets the credit? I do. So if the ratings go down, let it be because it was my decision, But I thank Barry Mayo in some ways, because he did take a risk on me, making me his program director,
right?
Especially our relationship in the beginning. What he respected me for was that I stood up to him, that I wasn't afraid of him because I cared for the station, and ultimately when that station went to #1 the first time, I didn't find this out until last year. When that station went to #1, he made a $2 million bonus. Okay. And what did I get? $75,000 bonus. But God bless him. God bless him. I'm thrilled for him. I'm happy for him. But that happened a long time ago. But
good gracious.
Yeah.
So this my last question. I know, you sent me a bunch of air checks that you had done. You had did you have your own slot where you played music? You had your own. Okay. And this was the daily.
Every Sunday was my regular air shift. Okay. Every Sunday morning from 8 to 2 p.m. All right. Because if I change something on the air or wanted to change something on the air format wise, I would test it first to see if it worked. The second thing, the reason why I put myself on the air was to feel the audience vibe, with the phone calls that were coming into the station. Because each job, Jay, it was required that they had to fill out 4 pages of request sheets.
Okay.
I made them answer the phones, not just sit there and watch them blink.
Right.
So with the information that they were providing, I was able, by being on the air, was to double check that to see if I was getting the same things that they were getting. All right. So Yeah, I worked 7 days a week at that station.
Okay.
7 days.
7 days.
And then I was the fill-in jock. You know, whenever a jock went on vacation or something like that, I would fill in. You know, I would do the shift for the week. You know, I was so in love with that station, my man. I
Yeah,
was
I'm
so in
sure.
love.
I'm sure.
Until Barry did something really bad.
You told me that, and I won't necessarily put that in the story. I won't put that in the story, but you told me about that. What happened with the way it ended with you guys? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So what was your tenure at the station? From what year to what year?
It started in 1979 and it ended in 1986
79 to 86. Okay.
when he thought I was dying from the beats.
Yeah, that's crazy. So you haven't been in radio since 86?
No. After that, when he fired me, thinking that I was dying, I
Mm-hmm.
went to Tower 99 in Philadelphia.
Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right.
And I put the same format
That's right.
on there that I had on Kiss, and I put it on Power 99. And I took that station from a 4.3 to a 10.1.
Wow.
And all of that is in my portfolio, by the way.
Yeah, yeah.
And the program director of Power 99 in Philly ended up replacing me in New York. So it was like a joke in the industry that we must be bypassing each other on the New Jersey Turnpike.
That's funny.
But when Tony Gray went to Kiss, it fell down and power went up.
Wow, went up.
Power
So,
went to a
so you know that
10.1.
format. You know that format is one that works.
Yeah. And then after that, let's see, at 28 now. I'm 28 now. I was 28 then. That's when I decided to buy my own station. And then I went down to Bethany Beach and bought my very first station in Delaware. Then I ran that for 10 years. And then I was, how do you say, persuaded to go bigger by my partner. So I ended up coming up to Wilmington, and we ran that station for over 17 years. And then that's when I got screwed by them, where they took the station and just, I don't know why people screw me so much, right? I could see if they were failing stations,
Right.
but they were success stories. And today that station's gone. It's some news talk station right now.
Wow.
The station doesn't even exist anymore.
Wow.
And that's why I'm trying to get back and do what I do best, you know? And that's why getting that 98.7 Kiss back,
Oh man.
it's like that's where my story started, and that's probably where it's going to end, you know? And that's why I want it so bad,
Yeah. Sure. Sure.
you know?
Sure. Yeah.
But there's a topic in here that you were hinting on about payola.
Right. So how real was payola? Because everybody talks about payola. Of course, nobody would ever admit to accepting money for playing music. But how real was payola? If you could talk about it.
Payola was very real, extremely real. Okay. I learned about payola from word from Frankie Crocker. Supposedly, they paid Frankie Crocker $10,000 to play the message Grandmaster Flash 10 times a day. And he ended up only playing it like 2 times a day. And supposedly, they went up to his office and broke both of his legs.
I've heard that story a couple times, couple different ways. Yeah.
So when I heard that, I went, no, I'm not going to deal with that. Was it offered to me? A lot of times, especially by the independent record labels. They would do anything to get their records played. But I stood away from it. But I was a victim of it. before Barry Mayo made me the program director of the station
Mhm.
because of my skin color, I'm Sicilian, bro. Okay,
Right,
we're
right, right.
related. All right.
Sure, sure.
Um, it's in my blood. Okay, but because I was this color, he ended up hiring a friend of his called Sonny Taylor to be the program director when he became the general manager.
Mm,
So I became the assistant program director to Barry's friend,
mm,
Sonny Taylor. But we had a meeting and he said, Sonny, you're the program director. Tony's the assistant program director. But like me, stand back and let him do the music. You cannot add any records to the station. And, and I said, okay. Um, all right. So I went from $45,000 a year to $65,000 a year. It is what it is, because of my skin color, even though I was the program director anyway, you know. So I just did what I had to do. Um, and then one day, I get the flu or something. All right. And Barry and we used to live near each other. And sometimes like he would drive me home, because we'd live near each other. But one day I had the flu really bad. It was a Friday night. And I said, Barry, I feel like crap. I got to go home.
mm.
And because I was sick, he says, well, you're sick, so you're not driving with me. Go take the train. So I took the subway home. And the next day, Barry calls me and says, what's this bullshit on the radio? So I turn on the radio station. I said, Barry, I have no idea what that is. I don't know what it is. But why don't you ask your program director?
Right.
Okay. Um, so that Sunday, when I went on the air, I saw this piece of crap. It was the Wrecking Crew. And that turned up the lights. It was another Wrecking Crew record that had like a star on it on the album, on
Okay.
the label. I
I know what
can't
you're talking
remember
about.
I can't remember the guy's name who owned the label.
Lonzo Williams. Lonzo Williams.
Uh, he had like red. He was African American with red hair and freckles, a lot of freckles.
Oh. I know what you're talking about. Okay, I know what you're talking about. But they were on their own label. They had like it was Wrecking Crew Records, and I remember the Star. I know exactly what
The
you're talking
Star,
about.
that record, whatever that
Mhm.
record was. So when I went on the air that Sunday morning, I see this piece of crap. I go, oh, this is the record Barry called me on. So I took the record, broke it in half, and threw it in the trash, not thinking anything of it. So I would say like a week later, I get this beautiful bouquet of flowers sent to the radio station. I'm going, isn't this nice? So my assistant, she says to me, don't you know what they are? And I went, flowers. She goes,
Mhm.
stand back, look. And I went, they're funeral flowers. So I pick up the card and read it, and it says strike one. Then several days later, another set came, strike two. The third one came to my apartment, strike three. I don't know what's going on. Okay. Then I had a focus group that I was doing. It was a Thursday night, and I was at Grand Central Station, and I just missed the train. So another one comes in, and the entire car is empty. But this guy sits right next to me. The whole car is empty, and his guy sit right next to me, and he opens up his jacket, and there's a gun in there. He says, "There's a bullet with your name on there. Do what you're supposed to do." and do what you were paid to do. The guy leaves, and I'm sitting there going, did that just happen? So that next day, Stan Hoffman, the owner of Prelude Records, calls me. And he says, did you take money for the Wrecking Crew record? Said, no. I said, the Wrecking Crew. Oh, that's that piece of crap that I broke in the studio.
Mm.
I went right into Sonny Taylor's office. I took my hand. He was on the phone. I slapped it off his face. I said, you follow me into his office and you tell him what you did. He took $25,000 and told the people at the Wrecking Crew that he gave it to me. Okay. And Stan Hoffman saved my life. He corrected that whole situation. And Sonny Taylor just sat there, looked at those funeral flowers coming into the office and didn't say anything to me.
Wow.
And Sonny Taylor confessed that he took the $25,000 in cash and an envelope to play that record. But he told them that it was for me. Okay. And I looked at Barry. I said, Barry, I got two options. I said, either I call the FBI or you get rid of the son of a gun.
Right.
Okay. It's one or the other. And I don't give a shit about this.
Right.
You know, so he fired him.
Wow.
And that's when I became the program director.
That is absolutely crazy.
Yeah. But 7 months, 8 months, a year, don't you know I look behind my back a lot?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I never re-added that Wrecking Crew record. It was horrible. You know what I mean? It was horrible.
Wow.
So yeah. So, you know, Sonny Taylor was a great guy, but he was a thief. And I think one of the other reasons why Barry did not make him or allow him to play music on the station, because he knew he had a reputation of taking payola.
Mm.
You know.
But that was his friend.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, so I had a lot of great times at that radio station, but I went through a lot of hard times dealing with nonsense.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Because the chances of a Bronx guy breaking into New York radio, I think there's a better chance of winning the Powerball.
Right, right.
Because again, I had no radio experience at all. It was just from my thought process of when I was in that coma.
Yeah, that's crazy that was the influence that made you go into radio.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if that never happened, I would have been a motorman for the New York City subway because I was a train freak. I'm a train fanatic. I love the subway, you know. Like when I went up to see Dom in the summer, the end of August,
Mm-hmm.
we went back to the Bronx. And I was like looking up at the trains, at the 6 train, and I'm going, that's the train I used to take. You know, it's like, and I'm looking up in the sky, you know, and I said, if I never made it in radio, because I only gave myself to the age of 21. If I didn't make it in radio by the age of 21, I would have been riding a subway. I would have been a motorman for the New York City subway.
Wow.
So I did make it into radio at the age of 19.
Yeah.
So that's that. But yeah, so I've had a lot of good times. I think I've had a lot of success stories.
Sure.
There hasn't been one station that I failed at, though.
Yeah.
I didn't fail at KISS. I didn't fail at Power 99. I didn't fail at my the 3 stations that I co-owned. The only thing I failed at is trusting people. That's where I failed at.
Mm-hmm.
I should not trust anybody. And that's why these record plaques behind me, I said, you know what? If I can't raise this money, I'm going to do it myself. and hopefully, like somebody wants this. There's a Shannon plaque right there.
Hmm.
I don't know if you can see it. That one there.
I see the corner of it. Yeah.
Yeah, he wants to pay me $15.50 for it, but it's a 40-year-old antique. You
Yeah.
know, it's like, how do I let that go?
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Shannon was so hot back then, man. That was hell of a time period, man.
Did you know there were 3 different Shannons?
I think you told me that. I didn't know that until you
Yeah.
told me.
And look at this. I don't know if you can see it.
Uh,
RKO Radio.
wow. Oh wow.
Okay. The source of success is in the commitment of your
You've
team.
seen.
And that's what
Wow.
I believe in.
Right.
And these are the other program directors of the RKO chain, but I was the youngest one.
Wow.
And they all wanted that job,
Wow.
you know. And then this one here,
Incredible.
look it up later. Let's see, this one here. This was the last award I received. This is the Urban Night Radio Award,
Hmm.
presented to Tony Quattroni, co-owner of WJKS in Wilmington. And it was awarded by, let's see, from the NAB, National Alliance of Broadcasters, the RAB, which is the Radio Advertising Bureau,
Hmm.